How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about 2K's involvement with the Switch and what games they're porting. In specific, we're going to be talking about the Borderlands series and the Bioshock series. Now we know that they're porting all these games over in May on the 29th. However, I'm going to be going over why some of these bundles might not be exactly what you want. You know, I have this series here where I'm going over each game and going over why it might be worth getting them or not, because I figured out that you can buy these games individually. You do not have to get the bundle packs of them. As you can see, Borderlands, the Legendary Collection is $50. The Bioshock Collection for all three of them is also $50. Now these are games that you could consider last gen, but in all honesty, they are pretty much 2 gens ago. I mean, these are PS3, Xbox 360 era kind of games, and we're basically on to the next gen with the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5. I mean, heck, we just got the PlayStation 5's controller not too long ago. These are games from 2 gens ago, you could probably say at this point. $50 for 3 games. So if you pay $100 for both of these bundles and some tax and whatnot, you're getting 6 games from 2 gens ago. Whether or not you think that's worth it is kind of up to you. I think most people that are getting these games for the Switch are for people that basically just want to relive these experiences, but on a mobile kind of platform. They can take it around and do whatever what they want with it. I know for sure that there are a couple of these that I really want, but I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to go about and do this. Here is the flaw in the Switch and these ports for these games. You'll see over here that it says game requires a download of at least 42 gigabytes, a micro SD card required, but is not sold, sold separately. Basically, you need to have a micro SD card that can fit the 42 gigabytes for a download. Now, here is the catch. You'll see on this box here, it actually says download and micro SD card required. That is because it includes game cartridge of Borderlands Game of the Year edition. So Borderlands Game of the Year edition is on cartridge. However, there is a code for Borderlands 2 and the Borderlands pre-sequel. Basically, this is the Borderlands Game of the Year edition plus a download of the Borderlands Handsome Collection. So this 42 gigabyte download is the Borderlands Handsome Collection, while you have the actual Borderlands Game of the Year, the classic Borderlands, that is actually on the cartridge. That is why places like GameStop and Best Buy and all these other places have it like this. It's because the bundle just kind of has the, download codes for the other games in there. So this basically is $50 for a cartridge of Borderlands 1 and Borderlands 2 and pre-sequel as a download. Now, I'm not 100% sure what Bioshock is doing here. However, it also has a 31 gigabyte download. If I was a betting man, and from seeing how the cover says download and micro SD card required, if I was a betting man, I would say that this also might have Bioshock 1 on cartridge and Bioshock 2 and Infinite as a download. I know Bioshock Infinite is probably one of the most demanding games on all of these. I didn't quite go over this, but yeah, this is Bioshock Remastered, Bioshock 2 Remastered, and the Bioshock Infinite Complete Edition. Basically, both of these bundles of all these games come with all the DLC and whatnot, so you can kind of expect that. So here is what I would look at if I were you guys coming May 29th. You were going to want to take a look at these bundles, but also go into the Nintendo eShop. You can see that these games are kind of sold separately, for Borderlands anyway. For Bioshock, they are all sold separately if you wanted to pick and choose your certain ones. However, we have not gotten prices for what these games are individually yet. We don't have that kind of data yet. They have not shown that out for us. We know what the bundles are. We know they're $50 each. We do not know what they are individually. I hopefully would assume that they're pretty cheap, considering that $50 divided by 3 whatnot, that's a pretty cheap price if we get each of them individually. However, it'll be marked up a bit. I'm betting of these collections obviously are going to be the most bang for your buck if you're trying to buy all of them. If you buy all of them individually, I don't think you're going to get too much of your money's worth. You might as well buy the whole collection in general. It sucks that it's not all on a cartridge, but man, it'd be nice if we could get them all on a cartridge. Hopefully they sell these 2 separately on cartridges, because I would just do that. I'd get the Borderlands 1 Game of the Year edition on its own cartridge, and then Borderlands Handsome Collection on its own cartridge. I don't really want them to be downloads. I don't know if they're going to do a single cartridge for every single Bioshock game. I'm not sure how they feel about that. I do know that Borderlands and the Borderlands Handsome Collection, they've been throwing out discs, physical versions of those for pretty much every platform, all the way up to the PlayStation 4. I mean, this Borderlands Game of the Year edition just came out, you know, last year, and it has its own physical copy. You know, Borderlands Hamster Collection has its own physical copy, so I would not assume, considering that these don't even look like game cases with the Switch logo on them, and that these do look like they have game cases with the Switch logo on them, I would be betting that all of these are going to be actual physical things that you can get. It doesn't say any downloads required on these boxes. However, this isn't a box here. I bet you all of these are digital only kind of games, while this is actually a physical type of thing you can go buy with the download for probably Bioshock 2 and Bioshock Infinite for this bundle here. However, I think you could probably get Borderlands 1 in its own game case and cartridge, and the Borderlands Hamster Collection for its own game and its own cartridge. This is what I would go for. Don't do this one. Do buying both of these. It'd probably be a little bit more expensive, but is it worth going out and buying an SD card for? That's the question. You're gonna have to kind of worry about that. If you have some SD cards, micro SD cards, keep in mind, lying around, and you have the data to store these, and you don't really care about digital buys, I'm sure all of these are digital buys in the store. You can actually go to the Nintendo eStore. I'm here right now on it, and all of these are digital buys. I mean, obviously all of these can be digital if you want them to be, if you have a micro SD card big enough. However, that's the beauty of Nintendo's cartridges, is that they can pretty much fit a whole game on them and be fine. There's no SD card, you know, downloads required. It's just the fact that these are multiple games on one cartridge. You're not going to fit them on one cartridge. You're going to have to download a couple of them. So this is what I would prefer for you guys, or I would say to you guys. If you're going with the Bioshock games, be ready to download them all. I would either download them all, or just be okay with having one of them on a cartridge and then having to download the other two. If you know for sure you're getting all of them, this bundle is probably worth it for you, just from the fact that only 2 of the games will actually be having to be downloaded onto your SD card, while one of them is at least on cartridge, so you're saving that bit of data from having to be on a SD card. While for the Borderlands games, if you do not care about buying it digitally, I guess, for the other 2, or you don't mind one of them being on a cartridge and a couple of them being off on an SD card, I guess you can go for this because you're going to save more money. That is, if you have SD cards for it. It might actually be cheaper for you to buy both of these games on cartridge just to save up space, so you don't have to buy SD cards for the, you know, console. That's just my kind of view on it. I'm the person who likes to have my games physical just to begin with, because the whole just having physically just feels a little bit better. That, and I'm spending money on it the same amount I would digitally, so I'm kind of getting more just from the fact that I'm getting something physical. So I would go with buying the Borderlands Game Edition physically, and then the Borderlands Hamster Collection physically as well. You're still getting all the games. You're basically getting everything that's in here. It's just you don't have to download any of them. You could just pop out the cartridge and put the other one in. I find it pretty crazy that the Borderlands 1 Game of the Year edition has its own cartridge, and yet Borderlands Hamster Collection has 2 cartridges, or just 1 cartridge, but it has both games on 1 cartridge. You almost feel like, hell, if they could do that, why couldn't they just squeeze one more game on here? Because Borderlands 1 is the game on cartridge here, but Borderlands 2 and pre-sequel are download codes. If that was the case, wouldn't it have just been smarter to put Borderlands 2 and pre-sequel on the cartridge, and yet have Borderlands 1 be the download code? You know what I'm saying? Like, wouldn't that have been, like, better? Because, like, the download would have been smaller. It's just Borderlands Game of the Year. Or has it gotten to the point where they've, you know, this is Borderlands Game of the Year edition, so I guess maybe it's actually bigger now than Borderlands 2 and pre-sequel will be? I don't know. Or maybe they just have a lot of Hamster Collection codes that are pretty easy just to get out, considering that Borderlands Game of the Year is technically like its new updated version of the game. Maybe they're trying to, like, I don't know, maybe they don't have too many codes for that and it's brand new, so they just kind of like, hey, just throw it on the cartridge or whatever. I have no idea. Maybe it was easier to port it that way. I'm not too sure. And just from looking at, you know, game clips of Borderlands 1, this game actually looks better, I would say, than some of the other ones. I mean, just these, you know, little screenshots in general. I mean, this looks like the Game of the Year edition on PS4. I could hardly probably tell the difference. And like I said, it comes out with all the DLC add-on packs and whatnot as well. But let's take a look at, like, just a couple of these games, though. Just take a quick look here. This is Borderlands Hamster Collection, so this is just 2 on pre-sequel. I mean, these games don't look too bad. To be fair, like I said, they're PS3 gen. They're, like, last gen. They're 2 gens back. No, they're not super great HD textures. You know, we got HD texture upgrades and stuff like that for you know, PS4 and stuff. Obviously, I don't think you're really getting that here. So Borderlands Hands-On Collection includes a critically acclaimed Borderlands 2 and Borderlands pre-sequel games in one package, piles of bonus add-on content for both games. You're getting all of that stuff. And the Borderlands 2 Commander, Lilith, and Fight for Sanctuary add-on content is not included. So you're not getting that very last DLC bit we had for Borderlands 2 at the very end, which makes me think, do we get to have the level 80 level cap? Because that kind of came out of that Borderlands 2 Commander Lilith and Fight for Sanctuary add-on content. I don't think it was actually 100% tied with that. I think it was an update. I'm not 100% sure if we're getting level 80 from this game in Borderlands 2. I don't 100% know that. I wonder if maybe they will eventually port this later and you can just download it. I'm not too sure. And it actually doesn't say here that you're getting technically all the content. However, we know that the Borderlands 2 Handsome Collection included all the content. I'm sure that's in all of these. They just don't say it really here on this. But let's take a look at what the actual Legendary Collection looks like. See if it says anything different. So yeah, we're basically getting the same amount of stuff. It's telling us pretty much the same thing. Enjoy all 3 games, solo or cooperative, local 2-player split screen, or 4-player online play. So this is only 2-player split screen. I know we got that update on PS4 for Borderlands to actually give us the 4-player split screen, but we're just stuck with the 2 for the Switch, which, you know, isn't terrible. I'm not sure how many people are still doing local, but I guess that would suck for you. And I think, especially with how people are on Switch, I would definitely say there's more people sharing the Switch, so that kind of sucks, actually. I think more people on Switch would be doing the 4-player local, like, split screen than more people, like, on other consoles who are actually getting it. Borderlands Game of the Year edition, blah, blah, blah. We know that game. Borderlands 2 plays one of the 6 Vault Hunters, so it is including, like, the other DLC, and saying it's including the other DLC, which is pretty nice. And again, saying that the Borderlands 2 Fight for Sanctuary and whatnot is not included, which isn't huge. Hopefully they, you know, make that a free update in the future, but I guess we'll have to see. Bioshock Remastered also includes all the DLC. That's good. I'm glad to see something like that. Bioshock 2 had some DLC as well. Let's see if that's included. Yes, it does have both of those included. And the Bioshock Complete Edition, so that's probably a more updated version, which I think we got a couple of years afterwards, which was put onto, I guess, current gen, and we got the Barrows at the Sea and Clash of the Clouds. So that's good. I'm glad we have all of that stuff on there. Let's see if this has any information talking about what's on what, you know, if any of it's a digital download. I'm sure some of this has to be just from seeing how much it told us that we need a micro SD and how much they're going to put onto it. Yeah, Bioshock Remastered, Bioshock 2 Remastered, and the Complete Edition. We can see that all there, and it talks more about here, which is good. I'm glad that they're including this. This is good for the Switch, and I'm glad they're doing things like this for the Switch. However, it is the fact of those cartridges are so limiting. I wish if they could have done this, they could have just put like 3 cartridges in one box. Because if you ever open up the Nintendo Switch like case, there's a lot of room in there. They could easily fit 3, you know, things in there. However, they'd have to make their own cases for these games, whatever. You know, it's going to be like a whole process, and that might cost a little bit more. And I'm not too sure if 2K is willing to do that, especially seeing that this is a kind of a console that they have no idea if these games are going to sell on there. I think Borderlands will sell for me, just from the fact if I can get these in separate things, which they're going through the whole time to put the actual box art on here and everything, unlike the Bioshock. Just from the fact that they're willing to make the whole, you know, case and the box art, it just kind of shows that I think they are going to do that, just from having that alone, and how it doesn't have that little, you know, download code thing required. You can kind of tell that these are just going to be cartridges with the whole game on there, which I'm glad they are doing. At least Borderlands has that. I understand it's a little bit different though for Bioshock, because some of these older games haven't really been touched. They've been remastered, but they're more like digital remasters. They never really made cases or anything for them, so it's much easier for them just to throw it on here and have you download the other 2. However, a Bioshock Infinite in its own case might have been something, considering that the Complete Edition was kind of like a PS4-ish thing, so they should have kind of had a box art thing for that, but maybe they're not willing to do dire for Bioshock, just be considering that it's kind of an older series. While Borderlands, some of its older games are as old, they're still making new Borderlands games. It's still pretty hot, so maybe they think that people will actually buy the, you know, physical versions of Borderlands. But this has been a long spiel and a long video, guys. I did not want this thing to be too long, but I could keep going on and on about these games. I do think this is good for the Switch, yes. However, I think the whole cartridge issue needs to be addressed. And now, this is definitely like a first world problems kind of thing, because you are getting all the games. That is true. That is true. But I think fixing smaller things like this could really just give us that more quality of life kind of stuff. And as the Switch goes on, their cartridges will get stronger more than likely and will become easier to manufacture, so the cost of them will not be as much. So I could see over time this being something that slowly gets fixed. But as of now, I guess this is something we do kind of have to deal with, especially with just how the compatibility of the Switch is. It's kind of understandable, and you know, the actual handheld Switch itself doesn't have a ton of power. However, you can't just fit like a whole hard drive in there. You have to use micro SD cards to fit all of that data on there because the handheld is so small. It's still a handheld. So let me know down below, guys. Do you think there could be any ways that they could kind of fix this kind of thing? Let me know what you think, other than just slapping more cartridges inside of the game case. You know, that's the only kind of thing I could think of. Or maybe putting a external hard drive maybe inside of the actual home that you set your Switch onto, that, you know, docks it. Maybe that's an idea. But let me know what you guys think. Thank you so much for getting me so close to 1,000 subs. I seriously can't believe I'm getting that close. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I will always see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.